Right. Well, now for an in-depth discussion on the newly announced provincial task team and whether this will help rebuild trust in the province. We get reaction. We're joined by Weziwe, who is KZN SANCO Secretary, Mr. Edwin Mkhize, KZN COSATU, Mr. Themba Mthembu, SACP, KZN Secretary, as well as Thobani Zikalala, a political analyst. Gentlemen, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, also welcoming your views as the viewer as well. So feel free to send us a WhatsApp 072-110-5584 or give us a call 010-594-6010. Let's get into it with an analyst and certainly the alliance partners of the ANC representing those structures in KZN. And I think we'll start perhaps with you, Thobani, as our political analyst, to say what you make of this provincial task team, this interim structure, just the very makeup of it from a broad point of view. Is this the leadership that can bring the ANC back to its glory in KZN? Your assessment.
Good evening, Nalet, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Of course, it would be. We'd be very quick if we give a very detailed analysis of the structures. The first indication is that it seems very bloated. That's the first thing. It's very big. It looks like a structure that should manage two provinces. It's 67 members. I don't know how the different issues, details, and of course personalities, egos, and of course just the management of that big structure is going to be. And of course it looks like it brings a generational mix in terms of the leadership of the ANC on the basis of that. On the one hand, it brings veterans like your Jeff Radebe, your Siboniso and others who are former leaders of the ANC in different capacities. And of course, on one hand, it brings the recent leaders in terms of the basis of, if you look in terms of how the mix of youth leaders have been brought about. But I think my take has always been, I think the idea that simply a reconfiguration of the leadership of the ANC will fix its political crisis, I don't think that would be correct. I think there is a misdiagnosis, or maybe the diagnosis of the problem of the ANC. That diagnostic report has not been comprehensive on the fact that there may be a problem of a leadership crisis in the ANC. Maybe we can entertain that idea. But if we extend further in terms of the political crisis the ANC finds itself in, it is the ANC has been in the leadership of the South African state for the past 3 decades. In that 3 decades, its state formation project that it has brought about in terms of how its political mission of driving the liberation project of this country has in recent years come under serious scrutiny. The ANC must reflect on that, must reflect on whether or not the state project and the organizational framework it has brought forward in the fulfillment of the liberation project political mission is still intact, and of course, because its legitimacy, credibility, and of course the goodwill of the people, which is expressed through the vote in the last election, but of course its general acceptance in society, needs an ANC that is going to be honest with itself, that it's going to go further than just reflecting on personalities. But of course, that's just my initial thought. We can discuss the political issues as we go, but I feel the idea of just discussing names in and in itself is problematic. There must be a deeper political discussion about the position of the ANC vis-a-vis the project of liberation in this country.
Yeah, and I think that's something we certainly can get into later, but I do want to, at some point, get into the names, though. And so let's speak to the alliance partners. They've got this provincial task team has a lot to get right. We're talking about a party that went in the province from 54% glory to 17% in 2024. So perhaps let's start with COSATU's position on this one. Mr. Edwin Mkhize, Provincial Secretary of COSATU, are you in support of this provincial task team, 67 members, and Jeff Radebe at the helm?
Thank you very much. Good evening to you. Good evening to your listeners and my comrades here. First and foremost, I must indicate that you will recall that as the alliance partners in the province, in particular even ourselves as COSATU, we have made a call for an intervention on something that we really believe that was not right in the province as far as the working of the alliance is concerned. So every organization has a right now and again to intervene on particular situations. And I must say that the other danger is to pretend as if you know what is happening, as if you have been involved, as if you have been informed. I must indicate that, yes, we are actually observing what is happening, but we are also watching, like everybody else, in the media space, what is happening in the province. There has been no really attempt to actually bring the alliance on board in terms of what the ANC is doing in the province of KZN. And I really do not want, sitting here, pretend as if really we are aware, committee is responding to the challenges that we have raised as the alliance up until we are engaged in the province as to what is exactly that the NEC and the NWC intends to do in our province. So that's one of the but we must also indicate that, yes, we have observed, we were watching when the announcement was done by the Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula. Yes, indeed, in the
Okay, I'm going to just jump in there because your line is giving us some trouble, Mr. Mkhize, so we'll come back to you later as we try and freshen up your line because it is a bit choppy. But that's an interesting point that you make. Edwin Mkhize from COSATU and KZN saying we are watching like everybody else in the media as all of this unfolds, and so very little interaction with COSATU from that point of view. And I wonder if the SACP then, Mr. Mthembu, has the same position. Does the SACP feel that there should be a conversation with you as an alliance partner, as the ANC in the province restructures its leadership, and how you rate this, the makeup of this provincial task team?
Good evening, everybody, and to the viewers. Yes, I just want to concur with my comrade Edwin that as the three components of the alliance, SANCO, SACP, and COSATU, we did raise with our national principals that we would like the national office of the ANC to make an intervention in KwaZulu-Natal because of a deteriorating situation that we were seeing getting worse day by day. Actually, we raised this after the local government election, if some of us would remember. And we repeated it again after the national and provincial election when the results were out, even predicting that things may not be okay for the ruling party if this the situation in KZN is left on its own. So we are happy now that at last there have been an intervention. We hope it is not too late that there have been a step that have been taken to have this intervention, and we wish and hope that such intervention may bring some success in reviving the alliance and the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal.
Okay. SANCO's position, Mr. Kele?
Thank you. Good evening, Naledi. Good evening to my fellow panelists and your viewers at home. Thank you, Naledi, for having us. Yes, of course, as SANCO in KwaZulu-Natal, we welcome the newly appointed provincial task team of the African National Congress. And we wish even to congratulate the NEC of the ANC in the manner in which they dealt with this manner. They really showed that they understand the delicacy of the matter, and they proved themselves to be the NEC that is responsive to the issues of the people. As my comrade Kabazela Mkhize and Comrade Mthembu have clearly articulated it, that we are the first ones to come out in public to request the NEC of the NEC to intervene in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, after looking at the performance of the African National Congress after the last year's elections, in all honesty, the 17% performance is not a pleasing performance by any measure. But in terms of the final decision to reconfigure the PTT the way they have, we are very much pleased because they've proven that the ANC is indeed a 113 years old organization with a vast experience in terms of them bringing in the likes of Comrade Jeff Radebe, whom we all know as a person who has led the ANC, driving the policy development, which is a very intricate responsibility to do. Yeah. The likes of Comrade Mike Mabuyakhulu as well. They've got vast experience in leading the province of KZN, and we are very much happy. Even the number, which is 67, it's not even bloated. People should not behave as if we're talking about government positions, as if these comrades will be paid. They will not be paid. These are volunteers of the ANC who love the ANC, who are here to resuscitate the ANC of KwaZulu-Natal. As the people of KwaZulu-Natal, this evening will go to bed with comfort knowing that the ANC of KwaZulu-Natal is in good hands.
Okay, let's get into some of the individuals here, and I think a few of you guys have touched on the issue of Jeff Radebe with quite a bit of confidence in some of those comments as the provincial convener of this provincial task team. But then there is the role of Siboniso Duma, former chairperson of the PEC, now. No longer provincial chair, but now second deputy provincial convener. Mr. Zikalala, is this a demotion? And perhaps you can talk to me about why keep him there, the role that he should play, and I suppose even the lesson that we take from, the trajectory of his political career in all of this.
I'm not one that enjoys to speak about names, right? But of course, I mean, I think the ANC had to maintain a level of continuity, right? You don't want to dissolve a structure and get rid of everyone who was there, who may know how things were gone, and of course, who may have in some parts a bit of a connection with the membership and the structures of. You don't want to just to throw away the baby with all the bad water. You want to maintain some level of continuity, and I think also because you also needed to. I mean, this is the African National Congress we speak about, and if we can speak frankly, we understand that. Far beyond just structures and constitution, there also may be many other considerations that need to be made so that you maintain some sort of stability, some sort of organizational unity. And I think some of it comes from that. But of course, I mean, if you look at himself, right, he was part of a generation of former ANC Youth League leaders in the province. And of course, I mean, if you remember the Watershed Conference in the Olive Convention Center where they took power with Begum Tole as the provincial secretary. And of course, his own rise in that regard has been in that sense that they are former youth leaders who led together. Now they were leading the ANC together. Whether or not they've done well, I think it is for the ANC to judge. But if you look at the reconfiguration, it tells us that the ANC felt that it was in a political crisis. There's an organizational crisis in the province that need some sort of reconfiguration to strengthen that convenership. I mean, if you look at to strengthen the political head position, but of course, if you look at what happens on the coordinator side, which is of course the administration of the province, you find that the ANC decided that they will need to go to a different direction in giving someone with experience like Mike Mabuyakhulu, who is a former provincial chairperson of the province of the ANC, and of course a former MEC in the province. And I would like to agree, I mean, with some of the panelists who are saying as of course, we may not have the time to have a very deep political analysis in terms of, but if we want to look at the level of experience, I think the ANC has done well in terms of making sure that, one, they bring the respectable and experienced former leaders of the ANC, like your Jeff Radebe, and of course Mike Mabuyakhulu, your Weziwe, Thusi, Siboniso and the like, but also mix them with younger comrades so that you have the ability to respond to the political situation in the province. I mean, the political situation of the ANC in the province and in the country requires for the ANC to want to act as a united organization, but also to have the political agility to respond to some of these issues, because it may, on one hand, require wisdom. If you look at what the SG of the party was speaking about, the idea of its relationships with the faith-based organizations and traditional leadership, you need to have a level of senior leadership of the ANC that understands how that relationship is managed, right? Because if you see some of the crisis that come from the fact that the leadership of the ANC may have a difficulty of managing those relationships because maybe they lack experience. So you needed to bring in people who have dealt with such relationships before. But on the other hand, you have these emerging constituencies like young people in the province, which you also need to galvanize to try to bring together, to try to bring closer to the ANC. And I think they've tried to create a balance on top of that. But whether or not just reconfiguring the leadership solve the political crisis of the ANC, I do not think that is going to be sufficient. There must be a much deeper, reflection on the relationship of the ANC with its alliance partners, as the alliance partners has been speaking here, that it has deteriorated in the province. And we have seen, in public, for those of us who follow politics, we've seen in public the press conferences where the alliance partners had been complaining that relationship has not been solidified. And also that speaks to how the ANC suffers a political crisis in the province when it's unable to pull together with its alliance partners and give them the necessary respect that they need to be given in terms of the operations of the ANC, because they share a political mission. They have to, in one way or another, to have constant conversations about how things are going. And we know that this was not happening, of course.
And Mr. Mkhize said this earlier, that we're watching like everybody else in the media, and this is maybe what we need to get to, is 2026 is not too far off. We're going into local government elections, so you've got a provincial task team in the African National Congress that's got to go all the way down to branch level and galvanize as much as possible. So, Mr. Mkhize, perhaps talk to us about whether or not COSATU is there, though, to back the ANC up. It is in what is going to be, an important year and some time.
COSATU has a resolution that is taken a long time ago to actually to be part of the alliance and work with the ANC and back the ANC. But as we understand that material conditions change, developments occur, there are a lot of engagements. COSATU is currently engaging in internally in its platforms. We are going to have our central committee. We're going to have our own congresses. We are actually engaging on the changing dynamics, changing the changes that are happening in terms of the material conditions. That engagement is ongoing. As provinces, we're also having our own provincial congresses currently taking place. Remember that we are a mandatory organization. Working with the ANC was also part of the mandate. Now and again, we work with our members, test and check our members if the affiliation and the political affiliation that we have is still relevant and working for us. And currently, we are going to be engaging. But of course, COSATU is a force behind the African National Congress, because that is historically, is not just a matter that we can talk about as something of the present. It comes from history, the history of fighting for the liberation of this country, the history of deepening and advancing for our democratic gains. And therefore, we work with the African National Congress, of course, yes, as COSATU, but there are engagement and a lot of engagement. Remember that now we are in a different era where the African National Congress in our province, some they talk of the provincial government of unity, but we understand that there is now a government of national unity, which is also in its own defines some change in the developments and dynamics that are happening. So we now and again engage with those issues as to how, as a federation, we respond, as well as a federation, we must continue working moving forward. As we are engaging, we allow our members to engage. However, we must say that as COSATU, we are in the alliance with the African National Congress, South African Communist Party, and SANCO.
But this is actually a question for the SACP, because as we go into these elections in 2026, there is the question of whether the SACP then will be running independently, or are you supporting this provincial task team and will be working together to garner support ahead of those local government elections in the various districts in KwaZulu-Natal? Mr. Mthembu.
Yes. In fact, as everyone knows, that we are recently coming out of our Congress in December, where we resolved that as a party, we will have to contest the elections in the coming local government elections in 2026. We're still going to meet to have a meeting with the African National Congress of how are we going to work together, because we said we still maintain the alliance with the African National Congress. So of how then that will happen is going to be determined by the bilateral that we are going to have with the African National Congress in the next 4 weeks to come.
Yeah, but I think the real question, Mr. Mthembu, was this provincial task team, does it not restore the SACP's position in how the ANC is working its way with this government of national unity?
I can't get your question.
Essentially,
clearly.
what I'm asking is, if you look at the configuration of this provincial task team, does it at all restore the confidence of the SACP that talks could perhaps resume with the ANC to work together towards these elections instead of contesting independently?
In fact, it doesn't actually talk to what we are trying to put together with as the SACP in contesting the election, because we are talking about a reconfigured alliance with the African National Congress, and of how that reconfigured that alliance is going to be reconfigured is going to be determined by this meeting that I'm talking about, which I cannot prejudge the outcome of it.
Okay, all right. Let's get quickly the view of Weziwe here. If you're concerned about, the direction that the SACP then takes here and what it does to the stability of the alliance in KwaZulu-Natal. This is an incredibly important province, and this is what we heard from the Secretary General as well. So, the numbers that are necessary are not small numbers that we're talking about here, Mr. Qele.
Yes, of course, we've got about 12 million citizens in the province. Look, at this point, as SANCO, we have never had any engagements with the SACP, so I'm not going to be able to comment on that. But what we know for a fact is, as SANCO, we still supported the African National Congress, even though we also share the same view as SACP and COSATU about having a reconfigured alliance. However, at this point in time, we are very much comfortable that come 2026, here in KwaZulu-Natal, the people of KwaZulu-Natal will express themselves through the ballot by voting the African National Congress. Even now, people who did not vote in the African National Congress in 2024 are coming out and saying they were deceived by other people and they were misled, and they still believe that the ANC is the only political organization or liberation movement that is going to totally free the people of South Africa.
All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to wrap this conversation up, and we're taking your calls as well. 0105946010. Is this the provincial task team that will bring the ANC back to its former glory in KwaZulu-Natal? And when we come back, we'll speak to our panelists and ask them for their call to action for the new leadership of the provincial ANC on the other side of this. Welcome back. While we continue to get reactions from the ANC's alliance partners in KwaZulu-Natal after the provincial executive committee there was disbanded, and you do have now this provincial task team that has been set up, 67 members, but at the top of it, Jeff Radebe, Weziwe, Thusi, Mike Mabuyakhulu, Nomusa, Dube-Ncube, Siboniso, Duma, and Nomagugu, Simelane, amongst some of the leaders there. And as we speak to the alliance partners, I think let's close it off with calls to action, right? We'll start with SANCO. Call to action in about a minute, please. What the provincial task team needs to start with as they get to work.
The provincial task team needs to start by going back to the branches and going back to having community meetings and ensuring that we strengthen the relationship as the alliance, because unity is strength. That's what we want in order to bring back the hegemony of the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal, and then go through all those things that the Secretary General of the ANC spoke about today, going back to the Kings and going back to the faith-based organization. Those are key, and those are part of the foundation that made the African National Congress to be what we have today.
All right. Edwin Mkize, call to action for this new provincial task team.
Yes, maybe we must say the provincial task team must deal with factionalism. It's the ANC. That's maybe, I think, one of the main tasks that they need to deal with factionalism. They also need to address the issue of the alliance. Alliance is built on the basis of mutual respect. We lead our constituencies, they lead the ANC. Don't be pompous, don't be arrogant. Work with the alliance partners. It's important. We must really address the issue of governance. Let's make sure that we have a government that is delivering services to the people, the government that is efficient, the government that is working for the people. Those are some of the critical issues that we really have to deal with. Let's make sure that we build the structures of the African National Congress. The issue that we always talk about, the issue of the rebuilding, issues of renewal, they must be taken very, very seriously. That members of the African National Congress and even the mass democratic structures as a whole must be conscientized, must be educated, must be trained as to what is the cause of our struggle in South Africa, where we are coming from, and where we are going. That's going to be very much critical, even for the structures of the mass democratic movement to be able to.
Yeah. Okay, that line giving us some trouble again. Mr. Mthembu, your final thoughts as the SACP, the call to action.
As well.
Okay. Yes, I think the task team the first thing to do is to reconnect with the masses, to reconnect with even its own structures, the branches, the membership of the ANC. They need to see to it also that in the municipality where the ANC is leading, they are able to bring about a service delivery. They are able to fight corruption, which is becoming endemic. They are also able to bring some soberliness even within the so-called government of provincial unity, and show that they are the leader of the society. to be the leader of the society, it also needs also to play a leading role in making sure that the government of provincial unity does deliver to the people, not to deliver to the organization that are in the government of provincial unity.
Yeah.
So we hope that also they are going to be able to make the alliance to work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's take a call, and I'll get to our political analyst in a moment. Sbu's calling in from Mlazi. Sbu, good evening. Thank you for calling. Your thoughts? Sbu, are you there? Okay. Sbu not on the line. Let's see if we can try and get him back. But you're more than welcome to give us a call, 010-594-6010. Let's see some of the WhatsApps that have come in, though. Motlapo Tabiso in Kwakwa says ANC is supposed to focus on its re-establishment, but my analysis tells me that the elected members are often mandated to target Umkhonto Weziwe. ANC has everything it takes to emerge top in KZN if it responds to its challenges. Motlapo, thank you so much for that. SS Bengu says, good evening, lady. It doesn't matter who they bring in the task team, as long as they don't do what is expected of them. Service delivery, it's just a waste of resources. SS, thank you so much for that WhatsApp. Sanjay Lachman of the FBI Foundation says, forming a new task team is not going to make any difference. It's only going to get worse. They don't know how to elect members, more wasted expenditure while our people face hunger. Bobo says the ANC with leadership changes in KZN is not going to make any difference. They're just going to sink and fall behind Cape Town. Spoon Zimande says what this ANC has done today is the final nail in the coffin of the ANC, not only in KZN but nationally. The biggest problem the ANC is facing is failing to deal with the causes of its demise, and now they're trying to lock the stable after the horse has bolted. The fact that Mbalula became the SG was a sign. Okay. We can keep the WhatsApps going in, 072-110-5584. But I think let's get now the closing thoughts from Thobani Zigalala. Not a lot of confidence, Thobani, from the viewers as they send in their messages that this is the team that can revive the ANC in the province.
We must very much not try to be prophets of doom. I mean, we'll give them a chance to try and resuscitate the ANC, and then when that's the mandate that they carry. But for me, I mean, as I said in the beginning, my issue is not really about who is leading and whether there's a provincial task team or the PAC. My belief is very simple. The ANC must reflect on its political positioning 30 years after democracy. Whether or not it can respond to the crisis in the country with the project that it has built in the state, right? A state, of course, that is characterized. I mean, if you look now in terms of how the ANC is coming out with regards to the structuring of the states, as I said, state-owned enterprises, the structuring of the Department of Government, the crisis of electricity, the crisis of unemployment in the country, and whether the state that they've built can still respond, right, to that. Whether the organizational design of the ANC can still carry the political mission the ANC carry. That, for me, is a deeper political conversation that must be had. Then after that, you can start the conversation about who must lead the ANC at what capacity. But the ANC's political mission is a need for the ANC to have a deeper reflection. But also, I mean, how it has managed its relationship with its alliance partners, right, and different sectors of society. That also needs a deeper political, analysis from the ANC. That we hope, and I think this leadership in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, at least maybe the beginning of that. One, reflect on how you relate with your alliance partners. Reflect on how the states, the provincial state in KwaZulu-Natal has been built to respond to the crisis that we find ourselves in KwaZulu-Natal, of crime, of unemployment, of and economic participation of the downtrodden masses, of the poor people of our province and things like that, of how you've managed to transform spaces like townships and what. You must reflect deeper onto this and understand how the state that you have built is able to do that. But as I've said, must strengthen the relations with the alliance partners, because the strength of the ANC in the past has always lied on its ability to galvanize different sectors of society, its relationship with its alliance partners. As I said earlier, that it is a long-standing political resolution to work together in the pursuit of the common struggle. In recent years, it has seemed that the ANC has started to operate as some sort of big brother, right? Who's also very arrogant, who also carries a very big ego, who seems to want to direct how things are going in the so-called mass democratic movement, right? And in that sense, has almost alienated some of the political partners that they have in the different alliance partners. The ANC must have a deeper reflection about this, because if they don't, I mean, we had said before the 2024 elections that the ANC will suffer a very big knock in terms of the electoral result. And if they continue on this trajectory of operating like an island within the broader society and continuing on a trajectory of the state that they've built that seems to be under serious scrutiny and criticism, but continue to pursue it with arrogance, they will suffer further losses. It is I mean, a founded political theory in the world that liberation movements suffer this decline, and most of the time when they suffer this decline, they struggle very much to come back into power. Thank you very much, Naledi.
Yeah, Thobani, thank you for that. Let's take a caller. Sibangane is in Pietermaritzburg. Sibangane, good evening.
Hello, Jana.
Ngiyaphila njani, Puti? Talk to us.
Ngiyaphila. No, let me start by saying that we welcome the reconfiguration of the people of KZN, as well as the people that were elected by the ANC.
Okay, anything else?
So, especially for the likes of Mr. Mabuyakhulu, as well as other leaders who were elected in the structure, because we still believe that the former leaders of the ANC, especially those who were in leading the province like many years ago, they did make a very huge difference within the province. So we still believe that since they came back, our province will go back to its glory in terms of leadership growth, as well as to strengthen the branches, because of this going out structure. They have destroyed the branches. There is no more ANC in the province, only them, and doing whatever they want to do, manipulate the system. As they pushing for another conference, as we have seen the post for Mr. Mtolo, that they're waiting for the conference other than to fix the problem that is still going on within the province.
Okay. Yeah. So, Sibangane, optimistic then about some of the leadership that has been brought in to stabilize the party in KwaZulu-Natal. And that's where we'll close it. But of course, the WhatsApps can certainly keep coming in. But thank you so much to our panelists. Thobani Zikalala, political analyst there. Themba Mthembu, the South African Communist Party's KZN secretary. Edwin Mkhize, KZN COSATU provincial secretary. And Sizwe Qele, KZN SANCO, speaking to us this evening.